Welcome to Happiness, Health, Relationships podcast, the podcast where small but powerful daily habits are your future self. I'm Angeline, your guide on this journey to cut through myths and misinformation on better health, deeper happiness, and more aligned living through the 6 pillars of living medicine, which are stress management, nutrition, sleep, fitness, reducing addictive substances, and healthy relationships. Each week, I interview experts in their field exploring real-life strategies, science-backed habits, and soulful conversations to help you heal, grow, and thrive. One day, one choice, one habit at a time. Because small daily habits are your future self, and your future starts now. Hold on to your hats, folks. As we move through the episodes, it gets emotional. I'm super excited today to welcome Haydn Tear. Haydn's a level 3 coach at a local gym here that I go to, and I'm just really looking forward to getting into his story today. He's got an absolutely inspirational story of aspirations of becoming a footballer, and went through some enormous challenges which we're going to really get into details of today. So thanks so much for coming and sharing your story with us, Haydn. It's been a journey, to say the least, hasn't it? So welcome, first of all.
Thank you very much for having me. Obviously very excited, like I was saying to you off the recording, something I haven't really spoken about too much before in the depths we're going to go into. So it's going to be definitely an exciting one for sure. And hopefully a lot of people will relate to the story as well of coming past that adversity and the challenges I've faced into the position I am now. So very excited to get going.
Awesome. Okay, well, take us back then to the beginning. How did your love for football start?
Yeah, so I'd say my older brother, he was very much into football. He's 4 years older than me. So even in the garden, down the local playing field, we'd always be playing football. And I think that's probably where it mainly started, from just kicking a ball around with him and then joining a few local teams and getting to football that way. One of the first teams I was at was Hennessy-Thompson fullback, and that was a really good sort of introduction to football, going through sort of the younger age groups. And yeah, that sort of kick-started it from playing with my brother, playing with my dad at the park, to then going into a football team. And that step up was obviously, for me at that age, was really exciting for me to get playing in a football team, get playing some matches. And ultimately, I started off pretty well. I had some good ability, was scoring plenty of goals at that age, which is always fun. And that sort of led me into having a few opportunities at Lincoln City, to join their under-9 team. Now, originally, I didn't actually get accepted. I got almost turned down to start off with, in terms of being scouted into their academy. And then I think it was a few months later, they actually turned around to me and said, "Can we see you again?" for almost like a second opportunity. And that's when actually I got brought into the academy setup. So that was about 8 years old, going into Lincoln City's academy, which obviously for me at that age, probably didn't quite realise the magnitude of it. But obviously that, looking back now, is a massive thing to be scouted by a professional football club at that age and joining their academy. So that's sort of the initial phases of my journey and where it all started.
Absolutely. So what level of excitement was there at that point? So you're saying that, it didn't really dawn on you, the magnitude of that at the time, but what did it feel like at the time?
I think for me, it was a sense of just real pride and excitement to be in that environment as well, because obviously it's such a bigger scale than your local football club. And almost at that age, you're in your little bubble. So at school, you were then like the football kid who was playing at a professional football environment at Lincoln City. And yeah, so it was just a bit of excitement, a little bit of nerves as well going into it. So obviously it's a step up, but the whole environment that you're in and the coaching you got and everything, I think just pure excitement and optimism for the future and what could potentially happen. And again, it's one of those, like I said, you don't realize the process until you're in it, until you look back at it. But no, just a very excited kid, just wanting to play football, really.
Yeah. So, what were your hopes and dreams at that point? Well, what aspirations did you have?
Yeah, as I think as most young boys, most of the time, they get into football, their dream is always to make it as a professional footballer. Again, being such a young age, you don't really realize the commitment and how tough it will be. So for me, it was just a case of every single year trying to play my best football, listen to the coaches, take on board all their advice. With obviously that dream outcome as you start getting a little bit older, going into your teenage years, and realizing, you know what, I could be a professional footballer here. Like the potential for this to go into being a career is there. So I think definitely towards my teenage years, when I started understanding football a little bit more, understanding the levels, that was wholeheartedly the outcome for me. Everything was going to go into football, and that was where my sort of dream was set on in terms of becoming a professional footballer.
How old were you then when that started to really dawn on you and that you became quite focused?
Yeah, so I'd say, like I said, probably early teenage years was the time where I started to understand the process of it and what I was actually involved in. And it wasn't now just about playing football. It was, right, this is every single year. If I don't perform, I'm going to get released out of this club and I'm going to go back into my local team. So every year was a case of, right, I've got to do my absolute best and show up as my absolute best self to get another contract on a year-to-year basis. And then I think it was around 15, I actually got invited to go and play for the youth team. So the youth team is when you turn 16 to 18. So a two-year group or two age group. And at that point, being 15 and going to play with kids who are 2, 3 years older than you, at that time you start being around a place where that's a full-time environment, as in the youth team becomes a full-time football commitment. And then at that point, there was one specific game where I played for the under 18s and I scored in it. And then that was on the Saturday. On the Monday, I got pulled into the first team manager's office. And at the time, if you're into football and you've seen Lincoln City, that was Danny and Nicky Cowley. So obviously one of the two very successful managers in the last 10 years of Lincoln. And they basically turned around to me and said that we're going to offer you a scholarship. And that scholarship offer was made about 18 months early. So you normally get it made when you, at the end of your under 16 group. I got it made to me around midway through my under 15s. So at that point, speaking to the first team manager, who was like, I see him every weekend when I go and watch the first team, actually being in a room and he knows who I am, I know who he is, and him having given me the offer and opportunity to sign a scholarship and go into full-time football from the age of 16 early, that was a big moment for me in terms of, wow, okay, this is really serious now. This could be a exciting start of a professional career in full-time football. So I'd say definitely at that point was the turning point.
So what I was hearing there is a lot of pressure, actually. For a young teenager, and then getting through to your mid-teens. A lot of pressure from year to year. That contract, trying to get that contract renewed, but then huge euphoria, I suppose, at the prospect of that's huge, isn't it? Like you say. And yeah, I can remember though when the Cowley brothers were there, Lincoln was really put on the map actually. The team were doing so well, and it was the beginning of the stadium being filled every week as well, wasn't it? There was huge excitement around Lincoln City at the time. So yeah, that I can imagine, how huge that was really. So what other highlights then would you describe? Any other highlights of your football career?
Yeah, so I definitely obviously at that point there, when I was offered that scholarship opportunity to go into a full-time sort of football environment. And then from that point at 16, when I was at Lincoln, we won the National Cup. So that was a big achievement. And then actually my school football team as well, we managed to win the National Cup as well. So I won 2 National Cups in the space of about 6 months apart, where we're both finals. So obviously that at that stage in my footballing journey, to win 2 national trophies was a big achievement. I think as well, when you go into that scholarship environment, you're then in and around the first team. So you're playing with players who have got established careers in football, who have gone on to, some players and are playing in even the Premier League. So being around them and training with them at times up at the first team training ground, that was a massive highlight as well, just to almost get that glimpse of living the dream in terms of being in and around the first team, training every single day, playing football, doing what you love. And then the other big one I'd say was when I was actually in the youth team, in the scholarship group. We had a pretty good FA Youth Cup run. Now the FA Youth Cup, for anybody who's not sure, is the under-18 version of the FA Cup. So a big tournament, and actually managed to play, I think, 4 games in that competition, won all 4 games, and then the 5th round, we got knocked out in the 5th round. So yeah, at that point, it was just a dream come true to be in that environment, around first team players, in a professional club, playing football every single day.
I mean, I can only imagine the excitement, really. I guess the other thing that I'm thinking is, were there sacrifices? Growing up, teenager, your mates are going out. What was that like for you? Did you have to miss out on things? Did you feel, or what did that feel like at the time?
Yeah, 100%. I think with the level you were at in the professional environment, 100% there was sacrifices made, especially as you start getting 17, 18 years old. Your mates are starting to go out more, house parties, going into town, wherever that might be. And at that point, I'd say no, in terms of, I'd play a game on a Saturday morning. Friends want to go out on the Friday night and go have a few drinks, go and do whatever. And for me, it was a case of, actually, no, I can't do that, because again, you're working towards a goal. You're working towards that dream outcome of finally being a professional footballer. So you just had to fully commit to it. So sacrificing things like that. I actually, for a period of time, moved away from home. I actually went up to live with the other lads in my football team in almost digs, if you want to call it that. Just so I was in that environment constantly. So moving out of home at 15, 16 years old, that was a step in itself. A bit more independence and a little bit more reliability on myself to get me through the days. But 100%, I think at that stage, if you weren't willing to sacrifice things, you were going to almost get left behind. If you're wanting to go out with your mates and then turn up to training and you feel rough and you can't perform very well, you're gonna get caught out at some point. So yeah, I think that age group, especially because your mates are starting to go out, it's a little bit more sociable. There was times where you're like, I wish I could go out, but you have the bigger picture and you realize that, if I'm going to get there, I've got to sacrifice a few things.
That requires a level of maturity, though, doesn't it? Really, you in a way, you maybe had to grow up a little bit early there. Yeah, is that fair to say, or what would you say about that?
Yeah, 100%, definitely. Just the standard that the environment was. So obviously being in that level, Lincoln City were now a League One club, so getting higher up the football pyramid, and the demand and the standard that was set on a day-to-day basis by the coaching staff, you had to become mature as an individual. Your mindset had to shift, because like I said, if you weren't, okay, you might have the football ability, but if you're mindset and discipline and your maturity wasn't on a level as well, it's a massive factor. And that could be a point where actually they release you and they say, unfortunately, your maturity level isn't quite where you want it to be. Your discipline isn't quite there. So you could be an amazing footballer, but you see it happen to plenty of footballers when they go out partying and all of a sudden their life falls away from them. Even though they're an amazing footballer, if you haven't got that emotional side and maturity side to you, you're setting yourself up for a tough time, I'd say.
Just a brief interruption here. I just want to ask, if you're enjoying the show, then let's keep the conversation going. If these podcasts are resonating with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop me a follow, leave a comment, or write a quick review. It helps keep the podcast thriving and invites even more amazing guests to join us. And if you'd like to support the show in an extra special way, you can buy me a coffee using the link in the show notes. Every little bit helps keep this journey alive. Now, back to the episode. Let's dive in. You've got to really want it, I think, haven't you? You've got, we only really do anything because we believe we're going to be happier in the having or the doing of it. So I think, you've got to really want it, haven't you? So, okay, so what was that like then when you first moved out, and had to sort of grow up quite quickly? What were those challenges, I guess, at that time?
Yeah, so I think it was a case of, so from under 9s to under 16s, I was with the same group of lads the whole way through. And then I was actually the only one who got offered a scholarship to go into the youth team from my age group. So I was moving in with people who were from London, were from a few lads from Ireland, Brighton, and it's a case of getting thrown into the unknown. You don't know who they are. You're trying to form friendships, relationships. You're now living in a house with them. You now got to make sure you get your own food. There's a lot more independence on yourself. And it's almost a case of just trying to not fit in, but give yourself the best opportunity of building relationships and getting used to having the relationships there, but then also being independent and making sure you've got a lot more responsibility now. So you've got to get all your clothes washed. You've got to make sure all your food is done. You've got to make sure your everything is ready to go. Your bags are packed. And just having that, again, that next level of independence makes you a little bit more mature as well. So I think the challenges were just being in a whole new environment with whole new people who you didn't have a clue who they were initially. And then just trying to take on that independence of, nobody's helping you out here. You've got to do it or it's not getting done, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else then that you want to say about that period before we move on to the shocking event, if you like, that really turned your world upside down? So is there anything else that you want to touch on before we sort of get to that bit?
No, I think that's covers most of it for now, in terms of just, when you get the opportunity and you're in full-time football now and you're so close to the first team, it becomes a real reality, and your excitement and belief and your confidence is through the roof, and you're within touching point of it. So when we talk about the next thing, you'll see how much of an impact it has on just your confidence and your outlook on everything. So yeah, I think at that point, scholarship, I was now in full-time football, excitement, was very optimistic, the potential was there. And then obviously we'll go on to the next point, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it really sounds like that your level was really there. You were the only one that was offered that scholarship. It really sounds like your potential was very real.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you share the moment when your injury happened and what was going through your mind?
Yeah. So essentially, like I said, the scholarship is a two-year period from 16 years old to 18 years old. At the end of that period, it's either you get a professional contract, you are now a professional footballer, or you get released and you get moved on. So it was literally 2-3 months into the start of that 2-year period. It was a friendly game against a men's team. So we were playing fully grown adults. I was 16 at the time. And I can remember I'd not long come on the pitch. So I started on the bench, unfortunately, where Kane came on. And I've received the ball and I've just had an absolute wild tackle from my right side right into the side of my leg. And unfortunately, at that point, my foot was pretty much planted. So in the end, I go down immediately. I'm waving to the bench because I know something's not right. I look at my leg and not the most pleasant sight to see. And at that point, I know something's seriously wrong because I don't normally go down and roll around on the pitch, but I knew at that point something wasn't right at all.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, what's going through your mind? Is it that you're still hopeful that it's an injury, that it will be okay? I guess, at that point, you're probably still thinking that, yeah? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'd 100%. I think when it happened, obviously, yeah, you know someone's not quite right, but you're not sure on what's actually gone on. You can't tell what 100% has happened. So at that point, I think it was a bit more of like a shock to the system and sort of disbelief of what has just happened. And at that point, to be honest, I was straight on the gas and air and whatnot they gave me. So I was probably a bit zoned out initially. But yeah, I think you realise something's not quite right, but you don't know the extent of it until obviously you get to hospital and you have your x-rays and everything. And it turns out that obviously it is pretty bad.
That's the end of part 1 in our 3-part series with Haydn Tear. Tune in next week where we continue this inspiring conversation and hear how Haydn came through these difficult times.